Bram Kanstein and I already recorded together over 1,000 Bitcoin podcasts. And after studying Bitcoin for tens of thousands of hours, we realized in this final phase of the fourth turning with Europe, with Iran, with the USA, Bitcoin is more essential than ever before. Enjoy. Hi, Bram. How are you doing? Are you fine on your end?
All good, man. I mean, the sun is out, spring is starting, and I mean, the world is crazy, but what can we really do?
What are you thinking about the world right now?
I mean, that's why I'm saying, like, the sun is out, right? Like, you need to appreciate something in life, I would say. So I'm appreciating this morning. My son said, oh, I love hearing the birds again. I was like, yeah, you're right. So I'm trying to pay attention to just the nice stuff, like the birds and the sun. I think what's going on is like so big, and when you kind of like try to follow it, like on X or YouTube, like certain channels, sometimes when I go down this rabbit hole and I'm trying to like get my information, there's a lot of contradicting ideas about what is happening, what certain countries or people's strategies are and whatnot. And I don't know, at one point I just realized like it's going to be very hard to really judge what is going on this bigger scale. I think especially from our point of plebeian point of view. So I think that's why from today I just started approaching it like, let's just appreciate the little things and life, and the birds and the bees and the children.
I love that. Very positive. And I think also in a similar direction that I went in the last episode with George Bodin. What I'm also thinking a lot about is how this actually benefits Bitcoin. So weirdly, it sounds, and how bad it is. A chaos in the world, I think, long term is probably good for a global neutral asset of Bitcoin. What do you think is kind of like the implications for Bitcoin?
Yeah, I have like a pro and a contrarian view on this. I would say I think my pro view would be that from how I'm looking at it right now, I feel like, if you think in terms of polarity or like pendulum swings, we really went towards like centralization, control, of which fiat money, like is a part. And I feel like we're close to that end where it's kind of like there's this breaking point where it shows that this isn't really working anymore, but it was also way more fragile than people assumed, right? Like I think the example of Dubai is just really interesting. Like, oh, could that be like the Switzerland of the Middle East or something like that? And to a degree, yes. But if you are literally next to a place where, as we're seeing now, war can break out, and their strategy is to hit that image, but also all this critical infrastructure with oil and stuff and natural gas and stuff around, then yeah, what was that idea actually built on? I would say not a lot of practical stuff, as we're apparently seeing, right? So I think that idea, and it's not only Dubai, but just like that was way too fragile. Just as like all these agreements, treaties between countries, even NATO, right? Like what was fundamentally underpinning that, I think, was more, again, as it seems like, more hope than an actual fundamental strategy. Because if this is easily dismissed, disbanded, or left behind, then yeah, I'm just wondering like what was really under there. So I do think we are in this kind of like chaotic end phase, and moving more towards decentralization, sovereignty, not only at an individual level but also at a nation state level. And I think with all the conflict that is going around, and the energy manipulation, the money manipulation, or from taking Russia off the SWIFT network to how countries are now mitigating actually getting oil and gas, or paying, Iran asking other countries to pay in, I think it was in yuan, right? Like eventually, I think it'll become clear that even though you want to trade with each other or need to trade with each other, the issue of the of using money that other people control actually becomes way more clear. So I agree with you on that side that, the need for a global and decentralized neutral form of money with, on a global scale, instant final settlement, right? Within 10 minutes, regardless of the amount. So you can pay for billions in oil in 10 minutes uh, with like final settlement. Conceptually, like I see that fully, like that is where we're going, and that is also part of it, right? So if I want to buy oil from you and you want to make sure that I pay in a certain currency, whether it's your currency or China's currency or whatever, um, I think that tension can actually really be dismantled by introducing Bitcoin as this kind of like neutral way to trade value with each other on this global scale. So conceptually, I align with that. I think that is where it's going. For me, that is a rational way of thinking, but not without any chaos. And I also think that on the other side, what America is doing right now, it's a whole different podcast, I think. But the if America really goes like full pro Bitcoin, maybe even for the reasons I just mentioned, and or to inflate the debt away into an asset that doesn't really touch the majority of people, right, in their homes and stuff like that. I wonder how the world is going to react, right? Because they already think America has gone crazy and they're mad, etc. So if they say like, we're going to be like Bitcoin country or whatever, I wonder if the world will follow. We could have a discussion around kind of like what would be the game theory there. Obviously, there would be some countries still that would follow that. But it could also very well be that other parts of the world, like Europe, become way more um, isolationists, or Europe will actually move to more even toward India, China, etc., and will totally fade Bitcoin. I mean, that's also a non-zero chance, I would say. So that would be kind of like my counter point of view or argument, where you know even if America figured it out, if everyone hates America, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but isn't it more like the internet or like gunpowder, where like if your enemy really embraces it, it encourages you to also embraces it, because you have a disadvantage, maybe not next year, but maybe in 10, 20, 30 years, if you're now not starting to accumulate it.
Yeah, I mean, rationally, yes, right? Like I fully agree with that, but I just don't. I don't feel that there is a lot of rational action being taken right now, right? So, um, there's a lot of clouded judgment, I would say. I mean, we again, as plebeians, right? Like we see that on a micro scale, right? You and I have talked about Bitcoin for years on a podcast, trying to convey to people, you have a serious problem in the future, and therefore you have a serious problem right now. Your whole idea of the future and where the rich Western country you're living in right now is going is definitely um where it's going is definitely not how you picture it in your mind, because the money is going to be debased. Even if you agree with a 2% debasement every year, then in 35 years, when you and I retire, or classically would retire, our purchasing power is down by 50%. So how much money units do we actually need to retire? I'm doing air quotes because I don't really know what retirement is going to mean in 35 years. um and like, where are all the social benefits and services and all that stuff going? So you need to pay attention to the fact you have this problem today. Obviously, governments are still going to portray and pretend like everything is fine. And I think that is kind of like the battle that we're in. Some people wake up to the fact that they have a problem today, and they start researching and trying to figure it out. I would say that is a rational action, right, for your self-interest. Whether or not they end up with Bitcoin, that is all up to them. But I think you and I can both agree that the waking up to the money problem, to the future money problem you basically have today, is an extremely slow process, and most people are still completely blind to it. So I think governments are even further behind that, because their entire incentive is to keep this system going up until it's not possible, or they introduce their CBDC and 15-minute city and whatnot, which is an extra push towards more control, more centralization, right? Like more central issuance of that money, more control over whatever the rules are for what you can spend that money on, where you can go, etc. And a lot of people will say like, oh, this is also such a conspiracy stuff and whatnot. But it's the most logical thing to do, because the entire point is that they don't want to, but because they should not lose control, because then the whole the whole system is exposed, where it shows that the entire system isn't designed to benefit your individual prosperity. And then then there would probably be a more like mass awakening and chaos that is attached to that. So I think, I mean, even in my country, when I see these politicians talk, like in the morning, I am on X, right? So I see myself as a random person, but I'm trying to be at the forefront of what's happening, right? I see like 3 different refineries in, I think it's Oman, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, or whatever. Like 3 different places. It's blown up. There's no oil production. The LNG terminals are being blown up, and my prime minister is making TikToks. So I mean, what is going on? So and this is what I'm trying to get to. This dissonance, I think, is only going to increase, and the gaslighting is also going to increase. So although underpinning, you would have rational arguments for following your rational self-interest of your own country, I don't think it'll happen as we would just logically go through. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And I don't want to be a doomer. I'm just trying to think through it also for myself.
it unfortunately makes sense. I would say.
That's my conclusion. Yeah, exactly. Like, again, I don't want to be a doomer, but I'm also just trying to figure it out.
How comfortable actually are you living in Europe? Meaning, how comfortable are you feeling being stationed in Europe right now?
Ooh, yeah. If I have to follow Balaji, then Europe is done. Which, I think my mind is not there. But if you zoom out enough and look at, let's say, 100, 200-year type developments, then it is logical to think, I would say, that there is always this ebb and flow. Basically, there is always an up and down. There is always this cadence, right, of a rise and a fall. I mean, this the whole Ray Dalio and the fourth turning stuff, and it makes sense only and mainly, in my opinion, because it's happened dozens of times before, right? So even though you and I might not want, Europe or the EU, or well, I'm not a big fan of the EU, but like, to go down, to change, to turn into chaos, it seems like it's kind of inevitable. And for me, that comes back to what I just said. If you do not agree on what the issues are, if you don't agree on the fact that eventually it's kind of irrelevant who started the issues, but that you need to quit certain policies and strategies, then change is also never going to happen, right? And I think the hubris and entitlement in Europe is extremely high, and that comes, it's funny, right? Because sometimes I have these discussions and people are like, oh, what do you think like this? And for me, it's always like you tie it back to the money. Everything comes back to the money, because for example, in my country, I feel like every problem, they think they can solve every problem by throwing more money at it, right? Like, oh, we have money, we are rich, and we are smart, so we're just going to dump money on this issue. But while that is happening, no one, literally no one, is acknowledging how this issue came about, right? It is they're always following this and I'm not an expert, but I think this is also psychologically logical, right? Like you have this thing called path dependence, right? Like there's this path that's been created, and it's so far along that it takes a lot of reputation and courage and guts and whatever to stray from this path. But if you're never honest about how the path came about, or however many fucked up decisions were made so this path still exists, then it's like putting a band-aid on, dozens of band-aids that have been put on top of a shotgun wound that would never be able to heal with just a band-aid. Does that make sense? Like I feel like you need to be radically honest about where certain problems are coming from, or else you can never honestly find, and also I'd say find consensus and agree upon what a solution should be, right? So for example, this whole idea of mass immigration and stuff like that, right? Like today I replied to someone like, I don't care if people are green, purple, white, black, whatever. Like it's all not about that or what people believe or whatever. Just imagine you have a business, and there's people running the business, there's people working in the business, and everyone working in the business is trying to provide value and contribute to the business, right? And the business is going really well, so you're having a lot of like pet projects because you have money. You're going to spend money on some pet projects, and some pet projects work, and some don't. And then at one point there are people that are like, well, the business is going really well, etc., and we are good people. We should hire more people, but the people that we hire, they're not going to work in the company. They're not going to contribute to the company. They are going to come to the office, and they're going to have a little spot in the office, right? And they can have lunch and go to the bathroom, and you know, um, if they're tired, they can sleep there. Whatever, they can do all this stuff, but they're not contributing to the business. But we're going to pay them anyway, and we're going to mix them with all the productive people in this business. And yeah, that's a great thing because we are great people, and we have money, right? And I sometimes just wonder, and I hope this came across in a proper way, like, why don't people look at it like that? Again, it doesn't matter what these people look like or what they believe or whatever, but this I think is just fundamentally so simple. And even if you would be, a good person and take in people in your company that wouldn't provide value, in the end, let's say every year, you should um, be able to argue why it's still a good thing to continue doing that, right? Like, are you still growing as a company? Is there still, are all the employees actually happy? Are you positive about the future, right? Are there positive developments and all that stuff? And maybe this is extremely oversimplifying, but just for me, it is that basic in my head. And as long as no one says, and this is just one example, we could go into nuclear plants and destroying nuclear plants in Germany, or Merz of Germany flying to China for the first time, coming back and being like, I don't think we would be able to afford 4-day work weeks because they're kind of productive there over there in China, right? We're just like, dude, it's so basic, right? And again, from a pleb point of view, this is probably oversimplifying, but I think this is what a lot of people would actually agree upon. Just it's basic, and I think the longer people are missing basic um, argumentation for stuff they are seeing with their eyes, the more chaos will ensue eventually. because at one point people are just done, right? You cannot work in that company forever, keep on trying to add value to that company forever, because before you're like, well, why am I even doing this? So
I think
is that an answer?
I like the analogy a lot, and I think one big problem is also the incentive structure for re-electing politicians. So if you say like there's a company and the company is actually a nation state, and there are people that bring in money for that company, so the people that are maybe self-employed, they are entrepreneurs, they are the ones maybe that in their own companies, not in the nation, like it's complicated, but in companies where they work actually do something productive, and they are carrying the company, and with that the taxes, with that the nation forward. And then there are people that are getting more and more dependent on the nation. The people that getting more and more dependent on the nation, as that group of people gets more and more in quantities, the politicians that get re-elected will be the ones that promise more people more money from the state for those dependent people. And that's an inherent incentive structure problem, where once you build up a big state, it's really hard to get it smaller again, because you promised all those people all that money and subsidies and like all those things, and now it's like really hard to dial it back and say like, oh, we cannot give you free transportation in all of the cities because we're bankrupt otherwise soon. we have to dial things back, which is a hard thing to do once you build it up, because then you don't get reelected. And if you are getting elected and you're doing all those things, you will be very unpopular, because there are too many people that are dependent on that state money coming for you. So it's an inherited system incentive structure problem, I think.
That's why you need to wake the fuck up, because most people are like that. And that is might be a scary thought, but that's why you need to wake the fuck up, because that is literally what is happening. You're completely right. And this is also what I meant when I said, like, the people that decide to be politicians are never going to be radically transparent as I just proposed, right? Like, there's no one that's going to say, well, I'm identifying a incredibly huge problem that has been lingering for way too long, that everyone with 2 eyes and 2 ears can see is going on, but I'm going to be that person that's going to point towards that and say, like, I'm going to fix that. And you see, for example, in the UK, with I don't know, what's that new party name? Is that Reform, or the other one that had like the video that went that viral? I think that stuff like that is going to happen in the UK. What's his name? Rupert something. I'm not following UK that much, but I think that's what you're going to see. But and then other people will see like, oh no, these people are bad because they want to do things that are bad for other people, and I'm a righteous person, but I'll keep on becoming, worse off in my life because I am such a good righteous person, And I think that just has an end. Again, I just think that has an end, and that's why you need to wake up, because like you said, it's most people are like that. They're going to look at a government which is just comprised of other people no better than you to make decisions for you. Well, if you look at history, try to find a place where that has actually worked uh, under the guise of a democracy, I would say, right? So there are places where, some sort of kind of like dictatorship type systems have actually worked. I'm not saying I'm in favor of that, but I want to add, like, under the guise of democracy, people still think like, oh, this is all a democracy, and because it's a democracy, we have to all get along and XYZ. Yeah, I just think there's going to be a logical end, because there's an end to how much people want to trade their time and energy for paying their government that can print money out of nothing to live a worse life eventually than their parents, or leave a worse life to their children. So I just don't think that's going to happen. Like that is not a sustainable path. And unfortunately, I think when people don't want to do that anymore, that is when the chaos starts. Like, okay, yeah, I don't want to be a doomer, and it's not something I want. But yeah, I just think that's a logical. That's just a logical conclusion. And I think it's going to be really tense to, for example, see what is happening in the UK. I'm not sure when there are elections there, but yeah, I mean, you even see it in the EU, this whole tension with Hungary and Poland and whatnot, right? Like even last week, there was this article like, oh, Poland is now in the G20 or something. I might be wrong with that, but more like, wow, Poland is doing so great. How come they are doing so great? Right? There was literally like an article that said that, and then the how do you say, like the explainer for why they are doing so great is low immigration, focus on family, making children, try to be productive, be proud of your country, and all these things, right? That are very scary when someone says that, but apparently it works, right? So I don't know. Other people have to be the judge of that, but apparently that works.
If you live in Europe like I do and want to buy Bitcoin the right way, check out Relai. Relai is a Bitcoin-only platform with no distractions, no shitcoins, just a BTC. It's also the easiest way I've found to do what actually works: buying Bitcoin on a consistent basis. Relai is also self-custodial. They never have the keys to your Bitcoin. No freezing of your assets, no counterparty risk, no rug pulling whatsoever. I have been a long-term fan of Relai, not only because it's incredible, easy to use and very beginner friendly, but also because it just works. If you want to get started with Relai today, click the link down in the pinned comment or in the description. And once you have downloaded the app, type in Robin in the referral code section of the app to save 10% on fees. So set up your DCA Bitcoin plan today with the Relai app and get cheaper Bitcoin if you use code Robin. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Finally, we have BTC Prague back in 2026. And this year, I'm not only speaking on a panel, but I'm actually going to present an interesting new angle, a perspective, a Bitcoin thesis at BTC Prague this year for the first time ever. I've never done that on any other conference, so this will be a fun one. If you listen to this show on a regular basis, I would love to meet you in Prague this year. It's very high signal, no noise, and Prague is just a freaking amazing city with awesome drinks and a lot of good food. Use code Robin to get 10% off, and if you buy with Bitcoin, you get an additional 5% off your ticket price. I'll see you there in Prague. Make sure to come say hi. I think the rational people, and probably I would say 98% of people listening probably agree with that. Not sure, but at least that's the loud minority that I hear in the comments. Is that you spoke about it just briefly, the fourth turning theory? A lot of Bitcoiners are into that. I'm not 100% deep into the fourth turning theory. I only on the surface level researched it, which from what I understand means that it now gets a little bit worse before it can get better. Things has to kind of break before it get better. And that's also for me, if you think about that broken incentive structure, there is an end to that, which hopefully not, but could lead into chaos. And then after that is kind of rebuild phase and like prosperity coming back and all of those things. Is that something that you are into, the fourth turning, and that it has to get a little worse before it actually can get better?
I'm not a super deep student of that, but I mean, I think it just follows human psychology in a sense, right? Like when there's an opportunity to build and there's money and people are happy and productive, and at one point, because they have everything, the fourth turning is really about how it can change in a generation, right? Like for it's like the 100 years. At some point, you know we forget what our grandparents went through, right? Like if all these people are dead, and we become the grandparents, and like this notion of what came before us kind of disappears, and like what was needed also for us to get to where we are, right? And if we talk about where we are, in a rich Western country, um for us it's always been like this, right? So creating a view that is kind of like a metacognition from that, looking on to that, right? And trying to figure out like, oh, how did we came here? What should we pay attention to in order for it not to get fucked up, and all these things. I think that just disappears because we are enjoying the result of the work that people did before us. Does that make sense? Right. So I think it's kind of like a logical, philosophical circle, or sorry, a psychological circle that people go through, where at one point there is just a lot of like I said, hubris and entitlement, and because people don't know where it came from, but they are forced to accept the system works like, or works in a certain way, but at the same time they're seeing it's not working either for them anymore, or is not going to work for their children anymore. They're going to move toward um, the latter part, rather than trying to figure out, hey, where did we actually come from? I think that's probably how it goes, and that's why you just have cycles all over again, because we just forget or don't respect how we got to a certain point where it was extremely good, again, in our context, right? And yeah, it probably has to get very bad before we understand that we are probably we are the only people that can change that, right? And I think one of the things that I think about a lot when for example, last week, I don't know if you follow Nick Shirley on X. That was the guy who exposed like the huge fraud in Minnesota. He's now in California with all these like hospice homes and stuff. It's insane how much money goes in there, and you even see, I think the Gavin Newsom office replied to Nick Shirley's post on X that has like 30 or 40 million views now, his video report, with like a meme that makes him ridiculous, like that Nick is like a bad guy, that he's like looking in all these places, and saying like, where are the children, or where are the old people? Like, it was this meme. But it's so fucking insane, right? Because you would think, in very basic principles, that money you pay for taxes is not abused by other people, and that the entity collecting the taxes would actually try to make sure that those taxes would be spent on actual valuable stuff, right? And I think again, a logical conclusion, because there aren't that many other options, is like, they're in on it. They must be in on it in some way, shape, or form. They must be in on it. Either, and this is where I end up a lot, they are either in on it, or you're ruled by retards. Fucking idiots. No, I mean, like, there's no logical argument to derive from the fact that as you can see in that like report, that there's a person in this rundown motel type situation that's running all these hospices, who got like 18 million or 17 million in government in government funds, that is just an oopsie or something. and not at that scale. And again, I think if you have two eyes and two ears, and you're just going to see that more and more and more and more, and more people are going to realize the kind of like phase that we're in. And I like the expression looting the treasury. I just looked it up. That refers to the illicit theft of public funds or assets by officials, often driven by greed, resulting in crippled governments, poverty, and severe economic consequences. Well, crippled governance is what I'm just describing, right? In this Nick Shirley documentary. It's like, where's the money going? Well, if there's a person, some type of finance controller on the Californian state side that either doesn't care or gets offered an amount of money that they're willing to take to look away, that is basically looting the treasury, or they're idiots. So it's either one, it's either one of two, right? And I think America is way further along on this whole debt path than Europe, but I think Europe is always kind of like 4 or 5 years behind. We know France is broke, right? They're posting all these cool, like, we have a new what's it called, like a new ship and this and that, and we're so cool and blah blah, but they're broke. They're literally broke, and they're flexing their ships on social media, right? And you see Macron with his glasses, and it's like, oh, but they're broke. So it's full cope, right? It's full cope with the intent to get people to rally behind their flag or their country, I think, for the chaos that is coming, because that is probably the only thing that is going to bind people, connect people, is that there should be something to strive or to fight for. But even in those countries, right, you see that there's a huge um, gap between people who actually think like that, and people that might see it as an opportunity to take over a country. So that's a bit easy.
The Macron classes, I couldn't figure that out. Like I saw that on Twitter, that he was wearing those like blue glasses kind of thing, and I was like, that cannot be real. This has to be.
You know what is even crazier? Two things that are crazier. The glasses were fucking sold out. So there are people watching a video, seeing their president wearing cool glasses, and they're like, oh shit, I gotta have them too. But these glasses are 500 euros. And they were sold out, right? Or 600 euros. I don't know the price tag, but in that range. Look it up. Please look it up what it costs. Please prove me right. Here. Macron's Top Gun look glasses give maker stock price a boost, probably. Click on it. Click on visit right now. Here. Yeah, that one. It'll show the article if you click on the visit on the right. Yeah. 4 million bump. Boom. So there are people that are watching a former Rothschild banker at the World Economic Forum, who's now the president of France, wearing glasses, and they're buying them because it's so cool. Okay. So if you want to think true where most people are at, they're fucking asleep, dude. They're asleep. They're buying glasses that Macron is wearing. So while France is broke, but they're so proud of Macron, So anyway,
I couldn't believe that it's true. Like I saw that and I was like, that is 100% crock. Like that cannot. Like he does not wear those glasses. Like no way.
Have you seen Idiocracy, the film?
No, but I think it's 1 or 2 times already mentioned in the podcast that I should.
You need to watch it, dude. Everyone who's listening, watch Idiocracy. Find Idiocracy, the Idiocracy trailer, or the trailer, or the first scene on YouTube. The first scene, you're gonna laugh so hard. I mean, it was a film. It's become a documentary. When you see you see Terry Crews in the cast, he's the president in this movie, and it's like American Idol, and he's the president. And when the White House was posting these meme videos, right, how they're bombing Iran, and they have like all these fucking crazy meme shit, that is Idiocracy, dude. That is literally where we are. It's literally where we are. It's so crazy. So yeah, everyone should check out this movie is a real life documentary. 20 years.
I will watch it tonight. I'm getting the pizza ready. I like it's. I think
Let me know.
already I've never seen it, but already like at least 2 or 3 guests I can remember that told me about that very movie, and it's. Yeah, I have to watch it today. I will let you know.
And if you want to get a bit more esoterical or spiritual, whatever, like all these ideas are not new, right? So there are certain people, like I just said, right? You know that this has happened many, many times before in our history with people no different than us, evolutionary wise. Exactly the same type of people with all the exact same issues, mental, ego, physical, all these things, right? Exactly the same type of people have experienced the rise and fall of empires and times and all these things. So these ideas around this are also not new, right? I'm not saying anything new. And Mike Judge, who made this movie, he's also not showing anything new. He's just early, right? And some people are just earlier than other people in recognizing stuff like this. But honestly, when you watch that movie, you're like, damn, this is just today. It's literally today, right? So I love that there are people like that are so far ahead that it literally feels idiotic, right? It's called idiocracy, like idiot democracy, right? It feels so distant and so fucked up that you think like, oh, this could never happen. But I think minds like Mike Judge, like for this movie, for example, they just have that foresight because they understand that it is just a certain path that we're going to, right? And that is also why I said you need to wake up. And I think, to connect it back to Bitcoin for us, honestly, the whole last week, I'm just thinking, what else do I want to hold, right? There are people on X that say like, well, if it's all going to shit, risk assets are bad and this and that, but Bitcoin is not a risk asset. Okay. Bitcoin is an asset if you hold it in self-custody that is all outside of all this fucking bullshit. Totally outside of it, and you can take it anywhere. You can hold it, right? No one can permit you to take it with you and to actually own it. Do you want to be sanctioned, or how do you say, like um you know do you want to have a limit on how much money you can send every day from your traditional bank or get out of an ATM, if those are even working? If you think that we're going into chaos, wouldn't you want to have all your wealth in all your fucking possession, being able to move anywhere you want? Not in your stockbroker app with stocks that are IOUs that you never own, not in your real estate portfolio that you cannot pick up or sell quickly. Think about selling when this chaos is coming, right? What are you doing? Are you going to take a title deed to another place and be like, hey, look at my title deed. It's stamped by some sort of municipality or authority in this country where I came from. And it says, there's a certain value here. So now give me money or no, give me food or give me gas. Like, or this is my stockbroker app, like I'm a European, but this is an American stockbroker app. And it says, I own XYZ, these are numbers from a database. If you start thinking about that, Bitcoin is literally the only thing that is neutral, that no one can fuck with. If there's like ultimate chaos and you have Bitcoin in self-custody, no one is able to touch that. Even if you have like stable coins and stuff like that, I think you can get quite far with stable coins, but they're still not neutral. Right. And I mean, and you're seeing little things today. Even today, I saw in the UK, I just reposted this on my Twitter. They want to ban self-custody. And I saw Freddie New, shout out to Freddie, who reposted a piece from a Gigi article. Okay, you want to ban speech? These people are idiots. They don't even understand how it works. They don't understand how it works. They don't understand what they're proposing. Even if there is a ban on holding Bitcoin in self-custody, who knows? Where is it? How much do I have? How can you ban letters and numbers? You know what I mean? Like they don't even understand how it works. But they're all making all these little steps, just putting it out there in the zeitgeist, right? Like that people are talking about it. Maybe this version of the idea is a bad version, but now the subject is in the kind of on the floor of discussion, basically, and it doesn't die as easily anymore. Does that make sense? Right? They just start the discussion, they just throw it in there, and maybe they know it fails like the first time, but then after, some people will pick it up as an argument for cohesion or trust or whatever. But my point is that if you think we're going to chaos, and again, I don't want to be a doomer, would rather not be a doomer. I don't think I'm a doomer, because I like the birds and the sun outside. But if you think that this is an option of where it's going, then I think Bitcoin in self-custody is the only way to go.
One thing that shocked me that and I think about was the Netherlands unrealized taxes. And I just saw, I think, 2 or 3 headlines because I'm not in the Netherlands, but it definitely shocked me that this is even a thing. And I don't know how far the law came. I just saw, I think, a very short video of the finance minister saying they made some mistakes or something like that.
Yeah, no, no. They said that's what he said. Now he came back from that, so it's going to the Senate. I think people are divided about how, because the people in the Senate are very pro the people that are in the government right now. But it's dumb. Again, it's dumb or it's malicious, right? Because there are many examples in history that show that this is a very bad idea. I mean, the whole Laffer curve idea, right? You can tax up until a certain amount, or else the people that contribute the most in money and productivity, or the creation of productivity through, the businesses and factories and whatever, they are going to leave because they can, right? And that's just going to happen. So again, it's dumb or it's malicious. So, but this also ties to what I just said. Even if the Senate dismisses it, this is now a topic, and it can rise back any moment with better argumentation, right? Calling upon the morality of everyone. If you make money, you need to pay more, is what all the people that you described that are looking at daddy government being like, oh, please save me, are going to follow.
This is actually a concern I have.
You could just draw it out. How this is going to go, right? There is no other option than people leaving. And then it's going to be really shitty, because then the people, to go back to the building analogy, the people that came in that are not productive, that want money, are going to clash with the people that are not rich enough or not smart enough to leave. Those will be the groups that are left in a country. Well, okay, that's really the lowest of my doomer ladder, I would say. But this is where why would you even stay? And this is also in the Netherlands and a lot of other countries, they're introducing this exit tax, right? Okay, so I don't like working at this company. This company is not good for me. So why would I keep working for this company? I want to go to another company. I want to put my productivity to work in another company. But then the company that I leave is saying, no, you still have to give some to this company, even though we treated you in a way that made you not want to stay anymore. You still have to pay us. Does that make sense? Would that make sense in a business world? Or would the company that treats the people working for them in such a way that the people want to leave, do you think that company will survive, or do you think it'll go bankrupt?
That's crazy because it's so obvious, Like it's very clear.
Give me another road. Give me another option. I don't know. Is there another option?
I don't think so. And this is I think this is a little bit the only real concern I have around Bitcoin in some countries, because I think there will be countries that get it and see, hey, those Bitcoiners are not only having a lot of money, they're also bright people. They figured something out soon. They are building things. I want them in my country, so I will not tax them to death. And there will be the countries that are kind of the promised land, or like the great destination where Bitcoiners want to move. But then there will be the countries that make the argument, oh, those early Bitcoiners made so much gains and they profited so much from Bitcoin going up from $1 to 1,000 to 100,000 to 1,000,000 to 10 million. They should get taxed to death now. And I just don't want to be ending up in one of those countries. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC free Bitcoin. That's why I use Simple Mining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together.
I have three things here. One, there will be a day, and please clip this, there will be a day that Lagarde or anyone who's heading up the central bank will have a press conference or some press moment, and they will say it is people like the people that own Bitcoin that have made sure that the trust in our euro is declining. It's going to happen. There's going to be a day. So we're going to save this. 100%. Because we should have trust, because we are an institution, because I'm Christina or whoever is on the CEO chair, right? Like, trust me, bro. You know, like that's the end. That's the end. We are in a trust me, bro stage, right? And then think about, like you said, and okay, so I'll tie it together. My idea of this pendulum swing, we're at the end, and people don't want full centralization and control by others and stuff like that. That's not what we want. That also wouldn't be very productive, right? But the people who are in charge and are in control, they want to keep that, right? So that's why it's going to be, like Terence McKenna says, weirder and weirder and crazier and all that stuff. So there's going to be a point where, like you said, there's going to be countries that are like, hey, but I do want productive people. I want productive people. I want smart people. I want people to invest in my country, because then everyone in my country will be better. Sounds so fucking basic, right? Okay. So remember when El Salvador had like this, I don't think I will go to El Salvador, but El Salvador is an example. It's also an example because it was an extremely fucked up country before. And now they're building, and they're saying like, hey, if you are a philosopher, if you are a scientist, if you are an entrepreneur, even if you are an artist, come here. You can get a grant. We can help you move. Please come here, right? There was this program where they were looking for 1,000 or 100,000 or 10,000 of these people. That is going to happen more and more and more. And this is what makes me hopeful, right? So we can be in the whole doomer thing, but this is what makes me hopeful, because why would everyone, if the whole world would go centralized forces, and stuff like that, there is always an opportunity to not be that, right? And only because it gets dark and chaotic and there are people that want to destroy and profit of it and all the bad stuff. Only because that exists, the incentive to do something great and build and be productive um, is manifested. Does that make sense? Right? Like it 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 comes from a certain that is what creates the incentive to actually be like that. And so it'll become, the whole world is not going to go dark. The whole internet is not going to be shut off, right? And all that shit that all the doomers say. That's not going to happen, because there's always places that see this strange, dark, chaotic strategy of others as a huge opportunity to do the totally opposite of that. And that is what will attract people. But the last thing I'll say is, once we get there and you and I pack our bags to go somewhere, because that is the promised land or whatever, and we're at the border and some random border patrol guy is going to be like, you cannot leave, that'll be the end. That's when everyone wakes up, I would say. Because that, and I'll tie it really back, that then, like, there will be a forced transparency. That you are a prisoner in your country. That will show most of the people what is really going on, instead of what you could do right now as a politician, be extremely honest about why everything is so fucked up, like I just said before. Right? So it's either you do that, you take that hit, or you let it go all the way to the end until you are forced to do something, right? Not letting people leave or tax them to death when they leave. And that is when people will figure it out themselves. Does that make sense? Right? Like I that's kind of where my mind goes. It's either like, because if you currently are in a chaotic country, or where you think it's going to be chaotic, I think it is already a great opportunity to actually go against the bigger stream, if that makes sense. If you're already ahead of the curve, right? So, for example, in the EU, I think the first EU country that would exit the EU because they think it's too crazy is going to be extremely popular. Extremely popular. And then the rest will start to consider. That's game theory, right? Should we cling on to a Titanic, or should we create our own boat? So I do think that this kind of like border between how many, like the majority still allowing this fuckery and more chaotic stuff to go on, and them waking up. I do think that line is very thin, but it's very different for different people. So what we would think is a severe thing would not wake other people up, for example, right? So I think people are all looking at this in their own way, and I think we are too. But still, I'm still in Europe, although I have all these ideas. So, I'm thinking about what to do, but I'm not. It's not easy to make a decision, like a long term decision in that sense.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you have those things where right now it's still good. Like I don't feel right now that it's as hostile to like move right away. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here. But the question is, do you want to build now your company, your presence, your family and friends when maybe in 10 years I have to move, maybe in 15 years I have to move? And I don't know, like it's a hard question because you have a lot to consider, because maybe it does get better. Maybe the some countries like Czech and Poland and other ones get out of the EU. Maybe they turn around. I like Czech and Poland a lot, from what I see from the outside, not in daily politics. This is also why I actually follow. There's this thing where Bitcoiners say don't pay attention to politics and all of that. I actually pay attention to Austrian politics because I think it's very important for me to know what's going on in my local jurisdictions. I mean, it's just Austria. It's a very small country. There's not a lot going on anyways. So doesn't take up a lot of time each week. It might take up 40 minutes a week, maybe 30, maybe 20, maybe an hour, depending on how much goes on. Sometimes it literally there's no news whatsoever in a whole week. But for me, it is important to pay attention to those things, because you want to catch things early, and like laws and all of those things, they are in public way before they are in practice. And so you can catch laws usually years before they actually get implemented, and things years before they get implemented. And the idea is, pay attention to where you live, because you might want to leave 5 years before things get ugly, and not in the year where it's obvious to everyone.
I mean, I think you got to the essence here, right? If I would follow everything I just said, and you follow everything you think or are looking at, right? And you just like this conversation, you kind of map out, like, okay, where could this be going, right? Just by doing that, it creates a very uncertain and kind of like fragile picture of the future, right? Although we could agree that it is a rational exercise, right? Like I said, I don't want to be a doomer. I'm just trying to lay out the steps, like what does that look like? But it's really easy to kind of like project that outwards and talk about it like we just did now. But it's really hard to then apply it to yourself, because like you said, I mean, I just walked outside in the sun. I had a coffee, nothing going on. Everyone is chill. Like there's no immediate danger to my life right now, or that of my children, or whatever. Like that's non-existent now. Yeah. So how do you apply that rational thought exercise? What kind of like probability do you put on that? And then how much should it actually be in order for you to take action right now while you're still in an extremely chill environment? I don't know, but I think that's the hard thing, right? Like that is the big question. I do think, I mean, I don't have the answer, right? But I do think that you will know when you are too late, which would be a bad thing. And I think you will never be super sure of how early you are, if that makes sense. So if you are actually early, I mean, there have been people before us that were earlier, right? They moved to Singapore or Dubai. I mean, we talked about that. Bad decision. Some people move to Switzerland. Okay, good decision, right? So some people move already. Some people move to Paraguay with their Bitcoin. Bad decision. You saw this week. They have like controls over how much you can send. You know, they cannot stop transactions, but it's not pro Bitcoin anymore. So yeah, if you move too early, maybe that's also a bad mistake, right? But yeah, what is early and what is late? I think the only issue is that you will know when it's too late, and you don't want to be there, right? So the best choice, I'm just thinking through it also for myself, right? The best choice is probably to be early, but not too early. But that's very hard to define, I would say. I hope.
And also the question, like where to move and how to set up. It's like, it's not easy, because there's like it's almost as hard as the question that you often ask, like if you sell Bitcoin for what? Like if you move out, like what?
Maybe land or property in this new place, right? But I mean, if I would go to Thailand, it would never be my property, right? You buy a house, but you always rent the land that is built upon. Same in Bali. Different in Paraguay, for example, where you can actually own the land, right? So, but then again, what is the political situation in Paraguay? I have no clue. What is the cultural strategy to look into the future of Paraguay? I don't know. I mean, again, when I look at El Salvador, I'm extremely impressed. Oh yeah, this is what I wanted to tell you. Like, have you ever seen any other country in your lifetime that says, I'm open to 10 or 100,000 philosophers and scientists and artists and anyone who would want to contribute to this country? Have you ever seen that? Like, I haven't really seen that. And sometimes when I hear Bukele talk, right? I'm just thinking I've never heard any Western politician in my adult lifetime talk as inspirational as he can talk, and what they are doing there, right? So it does already exist, and some people do make the move. And this is also what I personally think is so disappointing in general. That's always been my thought. Like, in the world, there is stuff that is handled in a great way, right? Like, I don't know, certain countries have amazing healthcare, certain countries have amazing public transport, certain countries have amazing investment strategies with their natural resources, and there's a lot of good best practices throughout the world in all types of topics that you can imagine. Why wouldn't you be a country that just picks all the best examples of all these, best, the best applications in any of these topics, and then just apply it to your country? I feel like Singapore has quite far in that. And then again, I don't want to go dark again, but it's just like, where's that incentive to not do that? Why is the incentive to not do that stronger than the incentive to actually do it, and try to actually make the lives of everyone who lives in a country as good as can be, by taking all these best practices from everywhere and just applying it in your country?
That's a fascinating thought, because it just doesn't happen. But I just saw we are at the end of our time, which was it felt like 20 minutes, over 1 hour already. Just like real quick before the end routine, because I think I always want to end it on like something positive, and end on like what people actually should do. I think you already mentioned it. Bitcoin and self-custody. Pay attention to what's going on. Wake the fuck up, as you said in the beginning. Anything else you want to add to what individuals should do in preparing for that chaos?
I think the spiritual path is very important. Like, I think there's a lot outside of us that we cannot control, which is always the case. But I think we're in a time where it becomes more and more apparent, as we just scratched the surface of, I would say, in the last hour. But I think the journey within finding God in whatever way you define God, is probably the most important thing that you can do, because there's so many things outside of you that are outside of your control. And so if you are if you're okay in understanding what you are, where you came from, and where you are going, then even if there's chaos and world war, whatever, and you die, it doesn't really matter.
I love that. And we have an end routine in the podcast, as you might know from the previous ones, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question, what is the one thing that makes a day perfect for you?
Oh, just waking up with my children. That's just waking up physically. Yes, that's it.
That's a fun one. Love
Very
that.
easy.
Very easy. Yeah. Thank you so much, Bram, for being in the podcast and being just a gracious guest with your time. And then also thank you so much for everyone that is. Before I let you go, where can people find you and ask you questions?
They can find me on X mostly, at Bramk, BRAMK, and they can find me on YouTube. Just search for my name and you'll find my channel. It's also at BRAMK.
Awesome. Then thank you so much, Bram. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.